Okay, so I'm going to build a demo application following along, not following exactly, but following along with the Daikachi routes and the Daikachi path variables assignments. So let me get there. Okay, nope, not there yet. Okay, so let's set this up. So I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code and I'm going to use the Spring Boot extension. So again, if you weren't here yesterday or if you missed this, you want to install this extension. Just search for Spring. And this extension here, let me show the right one. Yeah. So this one here will install the ones above it. Okay, so this is sort of the extension pack. This is what allows us to build Spring Boot applications in Visual Studio Code. And again, the platform uses STS. You're welcome to use STS. I mean, I know some of you are working ahead, and if you want to follow along with STS, that's fine. But everything they do in STS, you can do in Visual Studio Code, just so you know. So once you've installed this, it's a matter of what I could do. There's two ways to do it. I could create a new window. And from here, I can create a Java project and go through the whole process of finding it's this one here, the Spring Boot initializer. But you don't have to do that. You can just, from the root of your application, on Windows, it's Shift Control P will open up the I forget what this is called, palette. Whatever. Control Shift P will open up this thing. And if it does, mine comes up first because I use it all the time. But if you just search for Spring and you just want to find the Spring initializer, okay? And you want, I think there's one for not Kotlin. What's the other one? Groovy. Not Groovy. What is it? What's the other? Anyway, use the Maven one. So we're going to do Spring initializer, create Maven project. We're going to select 2.7.9. The platform says 2.7.8, but 2.7.9 works fine. We want to select Java. This is where you put the package, the convention. I think it's easier just change this to whatever, right? That way you don't have this long list of embedded files. And then this is going to be the name of your application. So if you're working on Daikachi routes, you're going to change this to Daikachi routes. If you're doing Hopper's receipt, you're going to do Hopper's receipt, right? So whatever the project you're working on or whatever the assignment you're working on, this is going to be the name of that project. So I'm just going to call it Daikachi. Okay. Then I'm going to do jar or war, doesn't matter at this point, but let's just do war. We're going to select the Java version you're using. So I'm using 17. And then here, last time I built a project, I used the Spring Boot DevTools and Spring Web. So I could just click this, or if it's your first time doing it, all we need is the Spring Boot Developer Tools and Spring Web. Okay, did I select it? Yeah. So those are the dependencies that will automatically be generated. It'll automatically insert those into our POM file when we generate our application. Okay, so I'm just gonna, any questions about that so far?
Can you add dependencies from here?
So you can add the other dependencies. The dependencies we're going to be using, I would just get the code from the platform. For now, we only need these two. We're going to be adding a couple. We're adding two more when we get to the database. But yeah, from now, I just use these two.
Like when we get to CRUD, or like when we want to have the front end, can we? Is it here where we install like Bootstrap or something like that?
No. So Bootstrap, you're gonna get. I would get it from the platform.
Okay, got it.
And good question. Thank you for bringing that up. If you go to the platform and go to Spring MVC, at the bottom of the Spring MVC section, there's a section called appendix. And everything you're going to need to do to set up your application is here, right? So I would just sort of use this as, so these are all the dependencies we're ultimately going to be using. So I would just copy and paste from here because it's impossible to remember all this stuff. So just use this appendix section as a reference to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything.
Which one you say MVC and
yeah,
then
so in the next, so right now we're in Spring Intro. Just go down to the next one, the Spring MVC, and go to all the way to the bottom of that page. There's this appendix section.
Appendix, okay.
Yeah. And again, don't do all this now because there's things, there's stuff for bcrypt and there's stuff for validations. We don't need all that stuff yet. Like if you want to add Bootstrap, the Bootstrap stuff is here. For now, I would just, if you want to add Bootstrap, just take the Bootstrap dependencies. That's all I would use in here for now.
Okay. Thank you.
So let me go ahead and grab those while I'm here because we gotta make it pretty, right? It's gotta be pretty. Okay, so I'm gonna take those dependencies and let me go back to my application. So once I've got the Spring Boot Dev Tools, the Spring Web, I'm ready to generate my application. So if I hit enter, it's gonna ask me where I want it. So I'm gonna put it in demos, and I made a folder called Spring. So this is where I'll put all of my Spring demos. So if I generate into this folder, it's going to put that application that I just built inside of demos, inside of Spring, okay? So I'm going to, it asks me if I want to open it in a separate window. I do, just because it's easier, right? So I'm going to go ahead and let it open it in another window. So it's still in my repository. It's just, I have just Daikachi in a separate window, so it's easier to see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and close this for now, and we'll just work in this window. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So I'd always just select enable. I'm not sure what that does, to be honest, but all right. So now that I'm here, there's a couple ways that I can start my application. So I can start it from the command line. So I can run maven clean spring -boot run. That will start my application from the command line. So that's one option. Or if you don't want to worry about trying to remember that, go to the Spring Boot dashboard here. Click that. It may have to think for a minute, but if it does, just wait until those little things move across. And then the app is here. I can just click this play button and it'll start. I don't think it runs Spring clean. I think it just runs and generates new classes as needed. So you can run the Maven clean if you're having issues and you need to clear out the old stuff that's been generated. Okay, so once I do that, and I can see that it hasn't crashed, right? So there's no prompt here, so I can see that it's running. Now if I go to a browser and go to localhost 8080, I can see that Tomcat is running because I get this message. Okay, so if my server weren't running, so if I stop it, go to this page and refresh, I get this. Okay, so that shows me that nothing's happening, right? My server isn't running. So if I get the site can't be reached, that means that the web server has stopped. So if that happens, and it's going to happen, it's not the end of the world, just come back, hit play again, and then it'll show this white label error, which shows that it's running, but I haven't told it to do anything yet. Okay. Any questions about that?